Future economists. Our main topic today is demand, supply, and prices. Our focus in this topic is the interaction of demand and supply. The interaction of demand and supply determines the prices and the quantities of goods traded in the goods market and the market economy. Firms are referred to as the suppliers of goods and services, while consumers demand goods and services. This therefore means that consumers are associated with the demand, while firms are associated with supply. The interaction of demand and supply determines equilibrium. What is then this demand? Demand is referred to as the quantities of a good or a service that prospective buyers are willing and able to purchase or to buy during a certain period. Now let's go to individual demand. The quantities of goods that an individual plans to buy during a certain period is determined by 1. The price of good X, which is denoted as capital letter PX, the prices of alternative products, which is denoted by capital letter P and a small letter G, the tastes and preferences of consumers, which is denoted by capital letter T, the income of consumers, which is denoted by capital letter Y, and the number of people in the household, which is determined or denoted by capital letter N, and any other factor that may affect quantity demanded, ceteris paribus, or meaning all other things being equal. What are then complements and substitutes? Let's start with the complements. When we're talking about complements are products that are used jointly. An example would be a DVD player, which is the machine, and a DVD, which is now the CD. Those are complements because they are used together or they are used jointly. Now, what are substitutes? Substitutes are products that are substituted for each other. That means you use one product instead of the other. An example would be to say you're going to use sweet potatoes instead of a potato. You're going to use peanut butter instead of Rama margarine. So in overall, the quantities of goods that prospective buyers plan to buy is a function of the quantities, is a function of the price of good X, which is PX, the prices of alternative products, which is PG, the income of consumers, which is Y, the tastes and preferences of consumers, which is capital letter T, and the number of people in the household, ceteris paribus. This function is denoted like this. Remember, I say the quantity demanded is equal to the function of the price of good X, which is capital letter P and a small letter x, the prices of alternative products, which is capital letter P and a small letter G, the income of consumers, which is capital letter Y, the tastes and preferences of consumers, which is capital letter T, the number of people in the household, which is capital letter N, and any other factor that may affect quantity demanded, ceteris paribus, meaning that all other things being equal. Now, if you look in this function, there's a quantity demanded, which is QD, which depends on all these 5 factors: Px, Pg, Y, T, and N. Meaning, therefore, that quantity demanded, or your QD, is a dependent variable, as it depends on all the 5 factors. So quantity demanded depends on all these 5 factors, hence a dependent variable. Now, coming to these 5 factors, these 5 factors do not depend on quantity demanded. They are independent variables. They are just independent variables. They don't depend on quantity demanded. Okay? Now, the quantities of goods that individuals plan to buy during a specific period, which then is known as the quantity demanded, which is affected by all the other prices, brings us to what is known as the law of demand. Now, what is the law of demand? The law of demand states that ceteris paribus, meaning that all other things equal, when the quantity demanded increases, or when the price of a product, in actual fact, increases, the quantity demanded of that product will decrease, and the vice versa occurs. Meaning that when the price of a product decreases, now the quantity demanded of that product will increase. Now let's come to the changes that are determined, that occur in all of these 5 factors, which are independent variables. When quantity demanded, when we say, for instance, that quantity demanded is only affected by the price of good X only. Now, what happens? Bear in mind, we want to know the change now in a diagram, all right? We want to know what's going to happen now to the demand curve, because here we're starting with the demand, We want to know that the change in demand when quantity demanded is affected by the price of good X. When quantity demanded is affected by the price of good X, there will be a movement along the demand curve. The movement may be upwards or downwards. So it means, therefore, that when quantity demanded is a function of the price of good X, on the demand curve we'll only get a movement along it. Now let's come to when quantity demanded is affected, or is a factor of PG, Y, T, and N. When quantity demanded is affected by all the other factors starting from PG to N, we get what is known as the shift of the demand curve. So it's no longer now a movement along the demand curve, which occurs when quantity demanded is the factor of the price of good X. It's now a shift now of the demand curve. Now let's analyze those changes one by one, starting with the price of good X. Quantity demanded being a function of the price of good X. Now what happens to the demand curve? We have said that the demand curve, there will be a movement along the demand curve when quantity demanded is only the function of the price of good X. We have said that there will be a movement along the demand curve. The movement may be upwards or maybe downwards. Now let's go to other factors. When quantity demanded, for instance, is a function of PG, like this, only. When we say quantity demanded, it is only a function of PG. PG, remember, I have said that it refers to the prices of alternative products, being your complements and your substitutes. Now let's start with the complements. Complements being joint products, products which are used jointly. Let's say, for an example, that we've got a DVD player, being the machine, and a DVD, which is a CD now. Now let's analyze what's going to happen there on the demand. When the price of a DVD player increases, what happens now to the demand for the CD now, or the DVD? What's going to happen? When the price of a DVD player increases, because these products are used jointly, we're saying the price of a DVD player increases. Now, what's going to happen to the DVD? The demand for the DVD. The demand for DVD will decrease. When the price of a DVD player increases, the demand for DVD will decrease, meaning therefore that the demand curve will shift to the left. Now the end result of that will be the decrease now in the quantity demanded. And the vice versa of that occurs, meaning that now if we say the price now of a DVD player decreases, now what's going to happen to the demand for the DVD? If that's the situation, the price of a DVD player decreases. It means, therefore, because they are used jointly, the demand now for the DVD will decrease. The demand now for a DVD, that is the CD now, will decrease. When we say the demand will decrease, it means therefore the demand curve will shift. The demand curve for the DVD will shift to the left, and the end result of that will be a decrease of the quantity demanded for the DVD. Those are complements. Now let's go to alternative products, now called substitutes. Remember, I said that for substitutes are products that are used in the place of one another, or substitutes are products that are substituted for each other. Let's take a case whereby now we've got a peanut butter and a Rama margarine as our substitutes. Now, what happens when the price of a peanut butter increases? Now, we want to know what's going to happen now to the demand for the other substitute, which is Rama margarine. When the price of peanut butter increases, the demand now for Rama margarine will increase. When the price of peanut butter increases, remember, we're saying that the price of margarine, of peanut butter, increases. Now the demand for this other substitute, which is Rama margarine, will increase, meaning therefore that the demand curve for Rama margarine will shift to the right. At the end result of that will be an increase in the quantity demanded for Rama margarine. Now let's say now the vice versa of that. Let's say now the price of peanut butter now decreases, what's going to happen to the demand for Rama margarine? When the price of peanut butter decreases, the demand for Rama margarine will decrease. Meaning, therefore, there will be a shift now of the demand curve for Rama margarine to the left, decreasing now the quantity demanded for Rama margarine. So that's what happens when quantity demanded is a function of PG, which refers to alternative products. Now let's go to a case whereby quantity demanded is now a function of the income of consumers. Now what happens? When this is the case, let's say now the income of the consumers increases. When the income of consumers increases, it means there will be more demand for goods. More demand, meaning that the demand curve will shift to the right, increasing the quantities of goods that are demanded. Now let's say the income now of consumers decreases. When the income of consumers decreases, it means therefore that there will be less demand for goods. When there's less demand for goods, it means that the demand curve for goods will shift to the left. That's what happens in the case of quantity demanded as a function of income. Now let's go to a case whereby quantity demanded now is a function of the tastes now and the preferences of consumers. Now what happens? What's the change there? Let's say, for instance, that now consumers prefer to buy more of 100% juices or juice drinks instead of acidic drinks. Now what happens? Meaning that their taste now and preference is 100% juice instead of acidic drinks. Now what's going to happen in that case? It means there will be more demand for 100% juice drinks, meaning that the demand curve for 100% juice drinks will shift to the right, and the demand curve for acidic drinks will shift to the left, meaning therefore that there will be less demand for acidic drinks. That's what occurs when quantity demanded is a function of the tastes and preferences of consumers. Now let's come to the fifth factor, where quantity demanded is a function of N, that is the number of people in the household. The higher the number of people in the household, the more demand for goods and services. Meaning, therefore, that demand will shift for that household to the right. The lower the number of people in that household, the lesser the demand for goods. Meaning that the demand curve for that household will shift to the left. Now, what do I mean when I say demand curve will shift to the left and demand curve will shift to the right? Demand curve shifting to the left shows an upward shift, whilst demand curve shifting to the left means a downward shift of the demand curve. We may also add another factor. Remember, in this function, there are these dots here, which means that any other factor which may affect quantity demanded. Let's say that any other factor refers to the prices of petrol. Let's say that it has been announced that the prices of petrol will increase at some time. What is going to happen now to the demand in that case? The demand for petrol, when it is going to increase, will increase. The demand for petrol will increase, meaning therefore that the demand curve will shift to the right or upwards. Let's say now it has been announced that the petrol prices will decrease. What it means now in terms of the demand. When the petrol price now is going to decrease, the demand for petrol will decrease, meaning therefore that the demand curve for petrol will shift to the left or downwards, meaning that less petrol will be purchased in that case. Those are the 5 factors and the changes in terms of demand that occur when quantity demanded is a function of all of them. Remember, I said that if quantity demanded is a function of the price of good X only, like this, we will get a movement along the demand curve. But if quantity demanded is a function of all the other 4 factors like this, we will get a shift of the demand curve, meaning that it will be a shift to the right or upwards, or a shift to the left or downwards. Note well that when I say there will be an increase in demand, I refer to a shift. When I say there will be an increase in demand or a decrease in demand, I refer to a shift of the demand curve upwards or downwards. That's the end of our topic today. Let's continue on this topic in my next topic. We will start with supply.